My name is Kelly Ashcroft and welcome to Talkin Tams. This weekly segment will give you an update on new developments in municipal services which benefit Canberrans. Today I'm joined by Linda Kwong, Education Officer in ACT NoWASTE, to talk about residential recycling and waste management services in the ACT. Thank you for joining me today, Linda.
Thank you very much for having me, Kelly. It's a real pleasure to be here.
First off, can you tell us what types of materials can go into our recycling bin?
Okay, basically there are 6 main categories of materials that can go in our recycling bin, and I'm going to name them and give you some examples. First of all, cardboard. Cardboard, we can put any sort of cardboard in our recycling bin, ranging from your cereal boxes to your beer box or pizza boxes. Many people don't realise that pizza boxes can now go in our recycling bin. Now remember, it doesn't matter if it's got cheese or olives stuck to the box, just put it in your recycling bin. The second thing is paper. All paper can go in your recycling bin. Anything from your newspaper, your magazines, window-faced envelopes, even the kids' artwork with macaroni and glitter on it can go in the recycling bin. Third thing is steel. All steel cans can go in the recycling bin, including aerosols. All aluminium cans, aluminium foil, even the pie trays you have at the footy can go in the recycling bin. Okay, all glass jars and bottles can go in the recycling bin, but please do not put light globes, window glass, ceramics, Pyrex, all those sorts of glass cannot go in the recycling bin because it's a different sort of glass than glass jars and bottles. Last of all, we can put hard plastics in the recycling bin. Now, many people get confused between hard plastics and soft plastics, and I brought some examples to show you. Many of you would recognise a container like this. This had sandwiches from the local takeaway. This is an example of hard plastic, and I know it's hard plastic because it's rigid to the touch. It often retains its shape. Now, this is an example of soft plastic, and this is a plastic bag, and I know that this is soft plastic because it feels soft to the touch and it also doesn't retain its shape. Now, we can only put hard plastics in our recycling bin. Now, some examples of hard plastics are things that you would find in the kitchen, the bathroom, the laundry, even the garage. And it could be anything from Terps bottles to shampoo bottles to milk bottles and lemonade bottles. These are all examples of hard plastic, and they can all go in your recycling bin.
So Linda, deciding what can and cannot go into the recycling bin is often a hard task for people. Can you give us some helpful tips for the people at home? Absolutely.
These days we're trying to make recycling as easy as possible for the average person in Canberra. We're also trying to help the materials recovery facility as well. So some great helpers or tips that we can say is, please leave your lids on all your containers. By leaving the lid on, it means that we have a better chance of recovering the lid as well as the bottom of the container. Now, many people are concerned. They might say, oh, this is a glass bottom and this is an aluminium or a steel top. Don't worry. Once the container gets to the next stage of recycling, they will remove the lids. All the plastic lids will go off to the plastic factory. All the steel or the aluminium lids will go off to those factories. They'll even remove the labels and send that to the paper factory. So please don't waste your time taking labels off and soaking them and separating. Another tip is we would like you to empty all the contents out of your containers. So if you've got half a container of flat lemonade, please empty it before you put it in the recycling bin. If you continue to leave liquid and food in your recycling when you put it in your bin, it may not get through to the next stage of recycling. So please do that for us. So that's some of the helpful tips. Another tip is with aluminium foil. Many people don't realise that you can actually put aluminium foil in the recycling bin, and what we're saying to you, doesn't matter if it has greasy lasagna on top of it, put it in the recycling bin dirty. In fact, all recycling can go in the recycling bin without being rinsed or washed. What we do say to you though, in the case of foil, please scrunch it in a ball. By leaving it in a ball, it means that the materials recovery facility has a better chance of recovering it. If you leave it flat, it actually behaves like paper. and it actually flaps in the wind like this, and it actually behaves like paper and ends up in the paper bale. So you must scrunch it up in a ball. I guess the main thing for Canberrans at the moment is remember not to rinse or wash your recycling, especially with the drought that we've been faced with. On the other hand, if you've been washing up and you've got grey water in the bottom of the sink, and then you've got dog food cans and you don't like the idea of your bin smelling, in that case, we don't mind you rinsing those containers before you put them in the bin. However, please don't make a special effort to fill up the sink and put fresh water just to rinse one milk bottle or so forth. So that's some of the hints that I have for you today.
That's really good to know. Thanks, Linda.
No worries.
What items can't go in the recycling bin?
Okay. We have a few issues in the ACT with our materials recovery facility. Our main issue is that people are putting soft plastic in our recycling bins, particularly plastic bags. The other issue is dirty nappies and pull-ups, which might be a surprise to some people, but we do get a fair amount of those in the recycling bin, which can't be recovered and can't be recycled. The third biggest issue is clothing, shoes and linen. Now, all of those things cannot be recovered at the materials recovery facility. Some of the other issues which are probably lower down the scale are things like organics, food scraps, green waste from the garden. Also, electrical cords, things that are long, like electrical cords, rope, coat hangers, those sorts of things cannot go in the recycling bin because of the nature of the object. What actually happens is those objects, because of the length of them, actually get caught around the machinery, and then it breaks down and it causes problems in production. Last of all, but not least, is things like kettles, toasters, small appliances. You wouldn't believe it, but some people put things like computers and TVs in their recycling bin, and unfortunately that's not the place for them. There are other venues for those sorts of small electricals. So there's some of the issues we've been having at the moment.
What exactly happens to our recycling once it's collected from our homes?
Okay. You will probably note that a yellow truck picks up our recycling, and it all goes out to a big shed out at Hume, and it's called the Materials Recovery Facility. This facility has a number of machines out there that are actually able to take the big mess of dirty recycling and then sort it, bale it and get it ready to be sent on to Sydney and Melbourne, where it gets turned into brand new things. Now these machines are quite complex, and it's got facilities of different mechanisms that are able to pull out the various things in the recycling stream. For example, a big magnet actually removes all the steel from the recycling. An eddy current is able to remove all the aluminium. Paper and hard plastics are removed through a series of infrared lights, and we then have men who stand with their hands removing the glass into 3 categories. So there's a variety of different systems to remove the things from the recycling stream.
After materials have been processed at the recovery facility, what are some of the items that they're turned into?
Well, that's a great question, because some people still aren't quite sure of that. Paper and cardboard gets turned into brand new cardboard and paper items. Aluminium actually gets turned into more aluminium, and you won't believe it, but an aluminium can only takes 12 weeks to go from the recycling bin and be turned into a brand new aluminium can, which is relatively fast, wouldn't you agree? Steel cans get turned into more steel cans and steel items. They also get turned into car parts, train tracks, kids' bikes and scooters. Lemonade bottles and Coke bottles and those sorts of soft drink bottles, which are made from PET, they get turned into more soft drink bottles. They can also get turned into some really amazing new things, such as eco-fleece jumpers, the linings of sleeping bags, and also the underlining of carpet. Now, last of all is the HDPE, which is you can probably know it as the frosted milk cartons that you get your milk in, or maybe orange juice or bottles of cream, that sort of plastic is actually melted into more plastic containers, but also used to make our recycling and waste bins. It's also now used to make building materials. So if you catch a bus to work or whatever, you'll often find bus seats made out of this HDPE plastic. So it is quite clever what they can turn recycling into these days.
Canberrans are renowned for being good recyclers. However, what don't we do well?
And you're right, Canberra residents are the best recyclers in Australia, which is wonderful news for us. Some of the issues we have is that many people are fantastic at sorting their recycling, so they know what can and can't go in the recycling bin. But the mistake they do is they put all their recycling in a plastic bag and tie it up. So what happens is, once that recycling in the bag ends up at the materials recovery facility, the men out at that facility aren't allowed to open this plastic bag. So all that wonderful recycling ends up going to landfill forever. And there's no fairies and pixies up at landfill rescuing our recycling, Kelly. So, please, if you're going to carry your recycling in a plastic bag, what we want you to do is empty that plastic bag out and leave your recycling separately in the recycling bin. The other thing people tend to forget is that aerosol cans can go in our recycling bin. And I think the reason why there was confusion is because many years ago when we started recycling, which is almost 15 years ago now, we used to say no to aerosol cans, and that was because the flammable properties. But now we know that it's quite okay to put aerosol cans in our recycling bin, and if they are going to explode, that will actually happen in the baling room in a safe environment within the materials recovery facility.
So Linda, how do you educate people to be better recyclers?
Okay, we do various things. Twice a week we run tours at the materials recovery facility and the landfill. We also open up the facilities to the public several times a year, predominantly in spring and autumn. And we actually have open days coming up in September and October this year. So you can book in for one of those. There's still vacancies. The other thing we've recently introduced was twilight tours. These were predominantly designed for those people that can't get out from the normal 9 to 5. So we're opening up the recycling plant in the evenings from 5 till 9, and people can book tours to those as well. You can also get information through Canberra Connect, and the number is 132281, and then you can speak to someone and ask them questions about any of those tours and open days. The other alternative is to get on the internet, and you can look up at the Tams website, and there'll be information on those tours and open days on there.
All right, well, thanks for joining us today, Linda. It's been great learning about recycling and waste management in the ACT.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Kelly Ashcroft. See you next time on Talkin Tams.